The Cris and Kahui homicides refers to the murders of brothers Christopher Epa and Kahui, the 20th of March 2006, the 18th of June 2006, two New Zealand infants who died in Auckland's Starship Children's Hospital after being admitted with serious head injuries. Their family initially refused to cooperate with police in the homicide investigation into the children's murder. The father, then 21-year-old Cris Kahui, was charged with their murder. His defense was that the mother, Maxina King, was responsible for the deaths. After a 6-week trial, the jury took just 1 minute to acquit him. In July 2012, a coroner's report was released, which concluded that the children's injuries occurred whilst they were in the sole custody, care and control of their father. Background: Cris and Kahui were the two survivors of triplets born prematurely at 29 weeks by emergency cesarean section on the 20th of March 2006 at the National Women's Hospital in Grafton, New Zealand to parents, Christopher Sonny Kahui and Maxina Pono King. At the time of their birth, King was 29 and her partner Kahui was 21. And they were already the parents of a 13-month-old child son Shane, who was born in 2005. Prior to that, King, who was born in South Auckland, had already had 3 other children in 2 previous relationships, and met Kahui through his father when she was 27 and he 19. The relationship, however, was not always smooth, with a range of risk factors contributing to tension and instability for the couple prior to and after the arrival of their children. After their birth, the twins spent 6 weeks at the kids' first neonatal intensive care unit at Middlemore Hospital. During this time, nurses and social workers at the facility had informally raised concerns with a Department of Child, Youth and Family Services worker, as the parents did not spend a lot of time with the babies. According to the hospital, parents not visiting is not considered child abuse, but was a cause for concern. Because the infants were still technically patients of Middlemore Hospital, hospital workers regularly visited the family home. During their last visit to the hospital, Cris and crew were reported to be healthy and well-fed. However, an autopsy showed that the infants had suffered fractured ribs in an incident prior to the fatal injuries. Deaths. On the 13th of June 2006, King returned to the house after being away overnight partying. She found that the boys suffered extensive bruises, and that their grandfather, William Banjo Kahui, had performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation on them. Police said Banjo was not the only person in the house at the time. According to former MP John Tamihere, members of the Kahui extended family had said a young relative whom they refused to name was caring for the babies the day they were fatally injured. King and her husband took their children to the family GP, who ordered immediate hospitalization for the infants. The coroner made a finding that Kahui refused to take the children to hospital, running away from the family car and leaving a distraught King carrying 2 babies in their carriers into the hospital on her own. Doctors immediately discovered that the infants had serious brain injuries. Both infants had suffered skull fractures from blunt force trauma and Cris had a broken femur. An orthopedic specialist told the Sunday Star-Times that in order to break the femur of a baby, the bone would have to be deliberately bent at a 90-degree angle, ruling out an accidental cause of the injury. After the infants were transferred to Starship Hospital, hospital workers notified the police. Child, Youth and Family removed Shane and their female cousin Kahui, aged 6 months, from 2 rented housing New Zealand homes, one in Clendon, the other in Mangair, where the Kahui babies had lived. Police said they were treated in hospital for injuries resulting from neglect. They had been found to be malnourished and dirty. According to the Herald on Sunday newspaper, the 2 children were to be returned to the family in September 2006. But neither the parents or so-called Tight 12 of family members who persistently refused to cooperate with police would be their caregivers. The twins were ultimately taken off life support, with crew being the first to die at 5 a.m. on the 18th of June. Cris died at 6:45 p.m. later in the day. The bodies were released to the family on the 21st of June and taken to the Manurewa Mare for a Tanjahanga funeral rites, and were buried at the Manukau City Cemetery on the 24th of June. Investigation. The deaths resulted in an initial serious assault investigation by the New Zealand police before charges were upgraded to homicide. The police believed that, while the infants were in hospital prior to their deaths, the family was uncooperative with any investigation. Peter Sharples, the co-leader of the Maori Party, said the family had agreed to talk to police on the 26th of June, but this did not happen. Following the deaths, Sharples said he was disgusted by the Kahui family's behavior. He claimed some members of the family were more interested in going to the pub and have a drink than coming forward to police. Prime Minister Helen Clark said it was absolutely shocking for the family to hide behind the funeral while everyone in the country was shocked and revolted by the injuries. There were even reports that gang members were threatening the Kahui family in Utah or revenge over their refusal to speak. After refusing to speak to police in the week after the death, police finally went to family homes on the 27th of June. At least 4 family members, including King and Anand, were escorted to police stations. By the 4th of July, at least 20 extended family members were questioned, as well as 90 medical practitioners and staff who were in contact with the babies. Forensic scientists removed items such as clothing from the Kahui homes. By September, police said that the family was no longer stonewalling their inquiries, but a prima facie case had yet to be established. Sunday News reported on the 17th of September that the list of suspects was down to 3 and an arrest was imminent. This was followed by a police statement 9 days later stating that they now knew who was responsible for the deaths. However, other family members could still be charged with related crimes. 2 half-sisters of King appeared on TVNZ's Sunday, the 23rd of July episode, claiming that King and her brother, Robert King, had told them the name of the killer. TVNZ censored the name when one of the women said it, but the gender was revealed to be male. The infant's paternal grandmother, who appeared the next day on TV3's Campbell Live, contradicted this information, stating that the killer was female. The homes where the babies lived were also home to at least 9 adult occupants, 8 of whom were on some form of social welfare. They had been receiving payments totaling between $845 and $1,395 a week, depending on their age and circumstances. Work and Income New Zealand launched an investigation to see whether all the payments were legitimate. 2 instances of substantiated benefit fraud were found for one individual. The Clarendon house had been occupied for 2 to 3 months, but neighbors had not noticed that babies were living there. According to the neighbors, Tuesday and Thursday nights were party nights, as this was when benefit payments were received. Loud music, foul language and fighting were frequently heard. One neighbor said that a 16-year-old female appeared on their doorstep at 3:30 a.m. one morning after she said an older man at the Clarendon house attempted to sexually assault her. Murder arrest. The edition of the 1st of October of the Sunday Star-Times newspaper published an interview with Kahui, who said that he did not kill his sons, but if police could not find anyone else, "I go down for something I didn't do." Investigators called Kahui interview at the police on the 3rd of October a major development. On the 26th of October, a carload of detectives had gone to several addresses looking for Kahui, who was brought in for questioning. At 10 p.m., it was announced in a press conference that a 21-year-old man had been arrested and charged with the murder of the infants, and would appear in the Manukau District Court the next day. No other family members faced charges with relation to the deaths. Contrary to this, the Sunday News reported on the 31st of December 2006 that, according to an unnamed source, a second arrest was expected. Neither the exact charges that would be laid nor the relationship of the person to the infants were revealed. 3 weeks later, the same newspaper said 4 people involved in the investigation had been summoned to appear at the Manukau District Court on the 24th of January. Sources told the newspaper that the new charges relate to dead infants and a preschool child. One of those to be charged was King, the mother of Cris and Crew. None of these charges eventuated. According to the Herald on Sunday, the Microsoft Word file containing the press release announcing the arrest of Kahui had actually been created 5 days earlier, and the last edit was the day before the arrest. In the same article, the Herald reported the police were questioning whether Kahui was actually the biological father of the infants. DNA tests later confirmed that he was the father. Court appearances. Kahui appeared in the No. 1 Court of the Manukau District Court on the 27th of October for a 2-minute hearing, where he was formally charged with murder. He was asked not to plead, however. Outside the court, Kahui lawyer, Lorraine Smith, said her client would fight the charges. He was remanded in police custody until the 10th of November when he was freed on bail. A pre-depositions hearing was held the 17th of January. A second pre-depositions hearing was intended to take place on the 21st of March. This was so his lawyer could read 60 files of evidence collected by police, and for a medical expert from Australia to become available. This second hearing was delayed because the defense was still waiting for the medical report from Australia. The depositions hearing was finally set for the 18th of June, with a brief court appearance on the 18th of April. This date was later changed to sometime on 13 August. Kahui was found not guilty on Thursday, the 22nd of May 2008, after only 1 minute of deliberation by the jury. The officer who led the police investigations into the murders, Detective Inspector John Timms, said he was disappointed at the verdict, finding no evidence to support a charge against any other person, and that includes the mother, Maxina King. He acknowledged the prosecutor, who had said in his opening and closing address that there is no new evidence to support a charge being laid against the mother, Maxina King. No charges were laid against King. Kahui lawyer has threatened to lodge a complaint with the Police Complaints Authority over police handling of the prosecution of her client for the murder of the twins. Coroner's report. Coroner Gary Evans released a report into the deaths of the children in July 2012. He found that the twins had suffered the brain injuries which led to their deaths during the afternoon or early evening of the 12th of June 2006. At a time, whilst they were in the sole custody, care and control of their father, Kahui. He said there was no evidence or fact to support that injuries being caused by King. Kahui, who gave evidence to the coroner's inquest, attempted to prevent the publication of the report. Significance. The case highlighted the fact that Maori children are more than twice as likely to die as a result of abuse than non-Maori, and that New Zealand ranks 5th highest among OECD nations for child deaths due to maltreatment, according to a 2003 UNICEF report. In July 2012, Dr. Muriel Newman of the NZ Center for Political Research commented in an article entitled State Culpability, "The Kahui Twins, that it is an indictment of our political system that so many of those in leadership positions have for decades turned a blind eye to the fragmentation of the family caused by welfare and other misguided social policies. The results have devastated generations of children. While the present benefit reforms seek to discourage sole parenthood and unplanned pregnancies, whether they will be effective enough remains to be seen." With the government's white paper on child abuse due to be released next month, one can only hope that for the sake of our children, a significant focus of future policy change is on strengthening the family and marriage, which still remains the safest institution in which to raise children. Media. The case was covered by Case File True Crime Podcast on the 23rd of April 2016. See also List of unsolved murders. References. External links. Case File True Crime Podcast, Case 16, Cris and Crew. Kahui, the 23rd of April 2016. Maxina King's journey from office work to public enemy.